terms of refugees, it's clear that countries like Turkey, Lebanon, and Jordan, which are already bearing an extraordinary burden, cannot be expected to do so alone. At the same time, all of our countries have to ensure our security. And as president, my first priority is the safety of the American people. And that's why even as we accept more refugees, including Syrians, we do so only after subjecting them to rigorous screening and security checks. We also have to remember that many of these refugees are the victims of terrorism themselves. That's what they're fleeing. Slamming the door in their faces would be a betrayal of our values. Our nations can welcome refugees who are desperately seeking safety and ensure our own security. We can and must do both.
You are listening to Beyond Reason Radio, and that was some of the Beyond Reason comments by the President of the United States. I hear him speak about this kind of stuff, and I just feel like we are so naive about our enemy. We are so naive about the threat that we face. I keep talking about in shows recently how in many ways we are a suicidal nation. Because I get the whole idea that we should be compassionate, we should help other countries, we should even help these refugees. But to bring them into this country, still talk about bringing them into this country, when two of the terrorists in Paris had Syrian passports. And we're still talking about bringing them into this country. It makes no sense to me. We're suicidal. We can be compassionate without being suicidal. You know, when someone is drowning in a lake, for instance, if he's bigger than you, they tell you not to go after him and try to pick him up if you don't have any kind of flotation device. Why? Because he will drag you down with him. What good is it to try to help him if you're just going to die with him? We can be compassionate. We can hold our values, which Obama never spreads our values. We talk about fighting of values. We never fight for our values anymore as a country. We believe in all values are equal. So that's part of the problem. We're going to get into that as well. But I just keep thinking about how we're suicidal. If I want to go help an elderly person cross the street, I don't shoot myself in the foot first and then try to do it. That doesn't make any sense. But that's what we're doing. There has to be... we have to use our reason. And I guess I'm going to have to do that since I am the voice of reason, the voice of the millennial generation, the voice of the Yaffee generation. Actually, your host, Michael Yaffee, Beyond Reason Radio. I thank you all for joining me. We do this show live every Monday and Friday at 8 p.m. You can listen... I tell a lot of people if they want to listen live, the best way to do it is download the Beyond Reason Radio app. If you download the app at the Google Play Store or Apple App Store, you can listen live there Fridays and Mondays a day. Otherwise, you can wait and listen to the podcast as well, and the podcast is basically available everywhere. Podcasts are available, including iHeartRadio, which a lot of you listen on iHeartRadio, and the podcasts are also available on the app. So I would encourage you to download the app. And I am joined by executive producer Mr. Michael Formasano. How you doing, Mike?
I'm great. Great as always.
That's good. That's good.
I had a day off today.
Huh.
Not bad.
Good.
About time.
You need yeah, you need it. He works hard. All right, I'm going to talk with Mike a little bit later about a bunch of stuff going on. Now, one thing I want to focus on today is a comment Marco Rubio made that he's getting a lot of flack for. And people I know disagree with Rubio. Ron Paul supporters disagree with Rubio. Many conservative libertarians disagree with Rubio on this. So I want to play the cut here because I want to play what he's saying that's getting all the flack. Here is Marco Rubio.
This is not a grievance-based conflict. This is a clash of civilizations. For they do not hate us because we have military assets in the Middle East. They hate us because of our values. They hate us because young girls here go to school. They hate us because women drive. They hate us because we have freedom of speech, because we have diversity in our religious beliefs. They hate us because we're a tolerant society. This is a clash of civilizations, and either they win or we win.
All right. So he is getting flack because what he's saying, this is the narrative, especially by the left, but not just the left. The narrative is now that the terrorists hate us because we bombed them. Because we bombed them. They say the terrorists hate us because we fought in Iraq and Afghanistan, and that's why we're attacking us, because of military assets in the Middle East. That's why the terrorists hate us. That's why the terrorists hate Europe. And if we just leave the Middle East, then they won't care about us. And Rubio's saying that's not it. What Rubio is saying is this is bigger than that. This is an ideological war. They hate us for our values. Now, John Kerry spoke in Turkey today, I believe. Well, it might have been in Paris, actually. He spoke, yeah, it was in Paris, I believe. He spoke, Secretary of State, and he said, this is not a clash of civilizations. The terrorists are against all civilizations. That is the most foolish comment I've heard from a Secretary of State ever. One of the most foolish. Because what the terrorists want, they're called Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. State. They are trying to make a state, a caliphate. They are trying to create their own civilization, a civilization that goes back, when Muhammad was on the earth and tried to create the Ummah, the Muslim religious community, the caliphate that came later with the Abbasid Caliphate and the Umayyad Caliphate. They're trying to go back to that and create this Islamic state that lives under Sharia law and their perverse interpretation of Sharia law. It's their civilization that they're trying to create, and it's that idea of a civilization versus the ideas of the West and the ideas of America. It is a clash of civilizations. But I want to get back to Rubio's comment, because there might have been a time where I would have disagreed with Rubio. But I have to tell you, I think Rubio is right. I think the root cause of these terrorists' hatred for us is an ideological, radical, Islamic, religious cause. It is their ideology versus ours. And as long as our ideology, our values, our system exists in the world and has influence in the world, they will hate us. And this idea that we can just fight ISIS. I did an interview with someone today who claims to speak for a lot of millennials. And I'm going to post the interview tomorrow. We disagree on pretty much everything. But I'm going to post the interview anyways because it'll help you get the other side. We'll be on the website tomorrow, beyondreasonradio.com. But she said, we can't call the terrorist Islam or radical Islam. The left doesn't understand there's a difference when we say radical Islam. We're not saying all Muslims. We're saying radical jihadist Muslims. Even the Democrat candidates in the debate finally called them jihadists. It's about time. But what she's saying is we just need to call the enemy ISIS. That's what we call them, ISIS. We're foolish. This goes way beyond ISIS. This is Al-Qaeda. This is the Muslim Brotherhood. This is Hamas. This is Iran. The Wahhabis. But what I'm going back to is, what is the root cause of all of this? What is the root cause? Well, part of that, believe it or not, you have to know history. And I want to tell you about a man. This is we're going to take a little trip to, yes, class is in session. We're going to go to the Beyond Reason Radio School. We got on the Beyond Reason Radio School bus. Class is in session. The bell's rung. Get in your seats, everybody, because we're going to take a little trip through history. And we're going to talk about one man in particular who did the bus crash into the...
That was the wrong button.
I was about to say, what was that? The bus crash, the students riot? What happened?
Precisely.
And now we got a giant laugh.
I'm going to stop.
Yeah,
stop.
yeah. Anyways, even though class started out a little crazy with executive producer,
That got out of control.
I want to talk about the history here. And a lot of it starts when you look at a lot of the roots of Islamic hatred obviously comes from way before this too. But a lot of it can be traced back to one man. This man, his name Wahid Khattab. Wahid Khattab. After World War II, this was a guy who grew up in the Egyptian middle class. He was not a radical. He wasn't really very religious, although he grew up Islamic and read the Quran and so forth, and he hadn't made a decision to really be religious. And he decided, shortly after World War II in the 50s, to come to America. He was an educator in Egypt. He wanted to come here and study. He had the opportunity. A lot of Arabs and Egyptians did that because they didn't hate America. They were upset at America for allying with Israel, some of them. But the absolute hatred of America wasn't there. They hated parts of Europe and Britain, of course, but it wasn't like it is today. It wasn't this hatred of America. They basically just hated Israel. But this guy, Wahid Khattab, went to America and studied. And he came here, and what happened is he became even more and more radical. Because he saw a civilization, our civilization, and he thought that our civilization, the way we lived our lives in the 50s, of all places, of all times, was so contradictory to the Quran and the way things should be that he became more and more radical. That he says we have to get away from this Western influence and we have to go back to the ways of the Quran. Do you see what I'm getting at here? It already started. This is before Al-Qaeda. This is before Hamas. This is before ISIS. And this was really before the Muslim Brotherhood got as radical. But this Egyptian started writing all this radical stuff. And he came back to Egypt and started writing all this radical stuff. And his hatred wasn't even for him as bad for America yet. It was bad for Nasser. Now, Nasser, many of you don't know, he was a socialist guy who took over the dictator of Egypt at the time and tried to make a socialist state in Egypt, which he basically did. And the Muslim Brotherhood at the time, now the Muslim Brotherhood was a group of Muslims who wanted to help Muslim society in Egypt at the time. But what happened is a clash began between the Muslim Brotherhood and Nasser, the socialist dictators in Egypt, because the socialist Nasser was trying to westernize Egypt. He was trying to modernize Egypt. Once again, it goes back to his hatred of the way America was, his hatred of Nasser, his hatred of the West, his hatred of modernity. That is what was motivating this guy, Wahid Khattab. So he came back to Egypt. This is what I'm getting at here. The root of all this is a radical Muslim ideology that has influenced it. This was way before we had troops. We didn't have any troops in Egypt at the time. America didn't really have any troops in Egypt. This is way before the Islamic Revolution in the 70s. This is way before we had anything. We went into Iraq in the 90s. Well, not even Iraq. We went into Kuwait to fight Saddam in the 90s, and we had bases in Saudi Arabia. This is way before any of that. It was just him merely coming to our country, seeing our values, like Marco Rubio said, and seeing how contradictory that was to his interpretation of the Quran. So you have a radical ideology that is influencing all of this. And so what he did is he started writing, he started speaking out against Nasser, and then he was accused of trying to assassinate Nasser in the Egyptian president. Eventually he was tried, and eventually he was executed in Egypt. But before he was executed, he had all these writings out there. He had all these teachings out there in Egypt. And many people credit him with the start of the Muslim Brotherhood becoming what it was, more radical against Western civilization. Many credit this person with starting what is now the modern Islamic radical Islam ideology and fundamentalism that is spread throughout the Middle East. A lot of it started with this one man in Egypt who eventually became a martyr for that radical ideology. And the point I'm trying to make here is what influenced him. He grew up in middle-class Egypt. He went to the U.S. He studied here. He lived here. He was never bombed by the U.S. He was never with the U.S. He was never, they say, they hate us because we attacked them. He was never attacked by the U.S., but he still had this hatred for the U.S. because of his radical religious ideology. So that's a lot of the influence. And what happened is out of the Muslim Brotherhood and out of followers of him became one of the founders of Hamas and Al-Qaeda. We have al-Zawahiri, one of the founders of Al-Qaeda. Was a follower of him, came out of the Muslim Brotherhood. Hamas came out of the Muslim Brotherhood. Now ISIS comes out of Al-Qaeda, which eventually came out of the Muslim Brotherhood. This is where this comes from. Until we understand the enemy, and the enemy is this. The enemy is a radical Islamic ideology. And until we understand that its roots come from that ideology directly in conflict with our ideology, with Western values, with modernity, until we fight it on that front, we can't win this war. This naivete that it comes from, well, we bombed them, so they hate us. Maybe some of the underlings in ISIS. I read an article from The Nation today that said some of the ISIS fighters, one of the really low-level ISIS fighters, they just wanted money. They just wanted opportunity. So they came into ISIS and tried to fight for us and hated America because we invaded Iraq. Maybe that's true with some of the low-level ISIS fighters. But when you're talking about the main ISIS fighters, when you're talking about the leadership of ISIS, it is so much deeper than we've just attacked them. It starts way before that. Starts way before. Like I said, this guy, Khattab, was in the 50s and 60s, way before we were really involved in the Middle East. His hatred comes from a radical Islamic ideology. We have to understand that first and foremost. And I'm going to get to more in this, and I'm going to play some audio of some experts who relay this point that this whole lie of they would just need more economic opportunity. Some of these terrorists were rich, had well-up economic opportunity, and we'll get to that in the next segment. But I wanted to give you the root because I think Marco Rubio is right. This is a clash of civilizations. It's a radical Islamic civilization rooted many, many years ago, and it's based on something that actually never really existed like they think it did. And it's Western civilization, including America, and the values that it subscribes. It's that clash that Rubio's talking about, and it's so much deeper than, we were just in the Middle East and they hate us because we're there. So if we just leave, they'll like us again. It's naive. I'm telling you, it's naive. You have to understand the history of this conflict, the history of religion to get this. And we're going to get to more on that. There's so much more. I've talked to so many more experts and audio I want to play, and I want to get Mike involved as well. You are listening to Beyond Reason Radio, live at BeyondReasonRadio.com and the Beyond Reason Radio app.
It would be beyond reason not to listen to Yaffee on your TuneIn Radio app. Download the app today and search Beyond Reason Radio.
Orlando's newest dining sensation, Doc's Streetside Grill, specializes in amazing flavors at prices you'll love. With special events and entertainment ranging from trivia to live bands to poker every evening, there's something for everyone. Doc's has amazing flavors that are always fresh. You know the motto, made today, bought yesterday. Doc's is located across from Orlando Regional Medical Center on South Orange Avenue. Check out DocStreetSideGrill.com for more info. Doc's is your prescription for good times. See you there.
Subscribe to the Beyond Reason podcast today on your Stitcher app and hear the voice of reason anytime.
Hey, this is Mike Yaffee from Bud Hedinger Live and Beyond Reason Radio, and I have a question for you. Are you planning on taking any long road trips? Well, I have the perfect tool for you to make that trip go by a little bit faster. What you want to do is download the iHeartRadio app. With the iHeartRadio app, you can find your favorite music stations or create your own custom station. Don't forget to look up your favorite talk show hosts. You can find that on there as well. Make sure to download the app today at iHeartRadio.com.
You can catch the latest Beyond Reason podcast on SoundCloud today. Download the app today and search Beyond Reason Radio.
For the people in our military, it's a time of sacrifice and duty. That's why all 4 military aid societies have joined together to form the Armed Forces Relief Trust to help military families cope with financial and medical emergencies at home. With so many serving overseas, the need is greater than ever. You can learn more and donate at www.afrtrust.org. A message from the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
If you miss any of the show, you can download the Beyond Reason podcast on iTunes. Now, back to Beyond Reason Radio.
Hello, everybody. This is your voice of reason here, the voice of the Yaffee generation, Orlando Smart Talk Radio. Make sure to follow me at Beyond Reason, the letter R, Beyond Reason R on Twitter if you want to get my take on a bunch of things going on. Tomorrow, I'm going to post the interview of the week. In the interview of the week, I talked to Amanda Gutterman, who is one of the editors at SlateNews.com. She's a leftist. She's a progressive, and I didn't really know for sure if she was before I before when I contacted her. I got an email request for it, but I thought maybe it was a possibility, and she's a leftist. And I threw her off a little bit because I would ask her questions, and she didn't really know the answer because she would say, well, to fund things like college education, free college tuition, we need to stop these foreign wars. And I said, okay, but how do we fight ISIS then if we're going to stop these foreign wars? And she really didn't have an answer for that. It was, it was kind of like, well, that's, I'm not a military general and yada, yada, yada. And it's just, one of the things I hate about that is I get it if we spend too much on wars. I get it. We maybe shouldn't have gone into Iraq to begin with. Although, I think the reason we're having a lot of these attacks now is because I think when we were in Iraq and Afghanistan, a lot bigger than we were, we created a battlefield there. So the terrorists would try to attack us there. But once we left, it created the vacuum, so ISIS grew in Syria and Iraq, and now they're able to spread their wings in the world, and we're not there to stop them before they get to the rest of the world. That's just a theory. I know a lot of people probably disagree with me. It doesn't necessarily justify going in there to begin with, but I'm just saying that I think that's a lot of the reality on the ground, is that thinking. But, Mike, wanted to talk to you for a bit. How did you like history class?
Great, Professor.
Okay, good. Professor Yaffee had another history class for everyone. I just wanted to make sure it made sense.
You really have a lot of job titles on this show.
I know. It grows. What can I say? What can I say? When you're the voice of the Yaffee generation, and you're professor and voice of reason, and it just
Part-time superhero.
Not yet.
Justice League.
No, I wish I had superpowers, but no. But good. I'm glad you like. Cause I know you didn't really know a lot of this stuff, but
it's just like we hear so many different things about different radical groups and the roots. The roots are important to understand why we are where we are today, and sometimes that gets lost in the chaos of the headlines.
Oh yeah, and by the way, full disclosure, I was a religious studies. I have a religious studies degree at UCF, so that's where some of this knowledge of history comes from. But it comes from reading and understanding and trying to get context of what all this is. And I just have to agree with Rubio that this is bigger than just we bombed them and now they hate us.
Yes,
that
absolutely.
There's a root here that
There's
goes way beyond that.
Much more before that.
And that's what I was pointing out, is when all this started, we weren't doing that. People forget we were bombed on 9/11 before we were in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah, absolutely.
We had terrorist attacks way before we were in the Middle East. We had them hate us, like I said, with Kitab way before even the Iranian Revolution in the 70s. So there's a root about this. Now, I wanted to play some audio because the other question is, how do we understand it? How do we fight this? What do we need to do now? What do we need to do moving forward? If we understand the root, what do we need to do moving forward? Well, I found some audio, and this is Nawaz is his last name. He is a what was his first name? It's Majid Nawaz. Now
Majid Nawaz.
Majid Nawaz.
I believe that's how you say his last
name. Now, he was on Fox News, I believe, and he was talking about this, and I found it interesting because this is a guy who was a former radical Islamist. He lived in Egypt. He was in prison as a political prisoner. He's a former Islamist, and he changed his mind, and he gets into why he changed his mind. Now, Mike, I'm going to have you kind of stop. We're going to play and stop a little bit as this is going.
You
got the long bites. We're not going to play the whole thing. I'm going to comment on some of the things he said because this is the guy we need to be talking to. This is the guy who understands the enemy better probably than anyone. And I thought some of his comments were really interesting. So I wanted to point that out to you. Let's listen to Nawaz.
Well, you see, the modus of attack and the way in which they've been described as shooting at people as if they were hunting for birds demonstrates to us something very clearly. It's about time we recognized that these people have adopted what I call the Islamist ideology. They are ideologically dogmatic and driven to bring about a theocracy in the world. And, those people on the streets of Paris weren't responsible for any foreign policy decision these people may or may not have been aggrieved by. And I think, unfortunately, it's been far too long we haven't been able to name this ideology for what it is, isolate it from the vast majority of Muslims who don't subscribe to this form of terror, and actually start dealing with the appeal of this ideology.
Okay, stop right there. That's pretty much what I just said, but he sounds a lot smarter than I do when he says it. Doesn't he just sound smart? I mean, he just sounds really intelligent. I wish I could talk like him. He just sounds smart. But that's what he's saying. He's like, look, we're never going to be able to fight this enemy if we don't start naming what it is and what its roots are, which I just did, that it's a radical Islamic ideology. They're not going to be happy if we just leave. They're trying to make a caliphate. And this is a guy who was a radical himself. We should listen to him because he talks about his motivations. It's not economic opportunity. It's ridiculous. Let's go. He goes on here.
You can't even begin if the president here isn't even able to name.
So what is the appeal? So what's so shocking is these are not people from Waziristan. These are people who grew up, I think we're assuming, in France with all the benefits of liberal democracy and prosperity, and yet they're specifically rejecting every element of that. Why?
And up until now, the vast majority of them are born and raised in Europe. So there are legitimate concerns with refugees. And of course, there must be security measures put in place. But let's not get distracted from the fact that these are born and raised European citizens.
So true.
Mohammed Amwazi, Jihadi John, this guy he came to the UK at 6 and went through our entire education system, went to university. He was living on welfare. The country was giving him everything that he could have hoped for, more so than Kuwait gave him. And yet he turned against the country. So the appeal here is, unfortunately, it's not a sense that they're not getting their rights in Western countries. There is a fully blown global jihadist insurgency. It's the new
Stop right
zeitgeist.
there. Do you understand what he's saying? He's pointing out Jihadi John grew up in a Western country, had all of the benefits, but what motivated him? A radical Islamic ideology. Look at Osama bin Laden, for instance. Osama bin Laden grew up in Saudi Arabia under a rich family. His dad was filthy rich. This was a spoiled kid who had every opportunity, but he was influenced by the Wahhabis and a radical Islamic ideology and the Muslim Brotherhood, by the way. There was another terrorist who came from America. You have the Boston bombers who had education in this country, who had all the benefits of Western society and hated it. Why? Because of radical Islamic ideology, not because we bombed them. It's so much deeper than that. And until we understand that, and this is a global movement now, and it's being metastasizing across the world through the internet and other things. And if we're not going to fight the ideology, we're not going to win. And we have to win. Let's hear more of him here.
angry young Muslims who want to vent their frustration, and they're joining this new bandwagon. Unfortunately, this jihadist insurgency has taken root among angry European Muslims. We have to understand, without stigmatizing the vast majority of Muslims, that that's where the problem is coming from, put it in proportionate terms, and then begin to put down a long-term strategy to make this ideology unappealing.
But what is the best tool to be used against radical extremism, radical, jihad that we're seeing? Because
Okay,
it just seems
stop
to be
right there. Since we have to take a break, that's what I call a tease, everybody. Yeah, you got to like that. But we're going to give, I want to get to that after the break, where he's going to point out how we fight this ideology. So we have to first understand where it's coming from, and then we have to understand how to fight it, but we can't until we understand where it's coming from. So now that the Beyond Reason School has taught you where this is coming from, now we can learn about how to fight it. Okay, you can take a lunch break. We'll be back. You're listening to Beyond Reason Radio here at BeyondReasonRadio.com and the Beyond Reason Radio app.
Listen to the latest episodes of Beyond Reason. Download the podcast at Spreaker.com.
All right, and if you ever need a good lunch break, I have the best place for you to go and get a good lunch break. That is Doc's Streetside Grill. Doc's Streetside Grill, which is on West Orange Avenue, right across the street from ORMC. Great food, great times, just a lot of fun. Now, on the weekends, they have a special. They have brisket and prime rib you can get for $15 and $16, and it usually runs out. I always comment on the brisket because there's not many places you can get brisket in this town. So I was really happy to try it. It was really good. A bunch of other things are really good. If you just want to go for lunch and get something small, they have a great appetizer menu. You can get soups, you can get salads, you can get stuff healthy. Their flatbreads, you get their margarita flatbreads. The margarita flatbreads or other flatbreads are really good, and it's really big. I've gotten flatbreads from other places, and you're like, it's tiny. It doesn't fill you up. And I'm like, I'm paying all this money for this? When you get at Doc's Streetside Grill, it's not as expensive, and you get a lot more, and it's very, very good. Doc's Streetside Grill, make sure to go on the weekends as well so you can watch all the football games. There's a lot of, they play the basketball games too. The Magic have won a couple games, so if you want to watch the Magic games, you can do that at Doc's Streetside Grill. They also have drinks, just a lot of great stuff. Just go to Doc's Streetside Grill, go to DocStreetsideGrill.com to find the menu and figure out all the details of the place. Doc's Streetside Grill is your prescription for good times.
Orlando's newest dining sensation, Doc's Streetside Grill, specializes in amazing flavors at prices you'll love. With special events and entertainment ranging from trivia to live bands to poker every evening, there's something for everyone. Doc's has amazing flavors that are always fresh. You know the motto, made today, bought yesterday. Doc's is located across from Orlando Regional Medical Center on South Orange Avenue. Check out DocStreetSideGrill.com for more info. Doc's is your prescription for good times. See you there.
Subscribe to the Beyond Reason podcast today on your Stitcher app and hear the voice of reason anytime.
Hey, this is Mike Yaffee from Bud Hedinger Live and Beyond Reason Radio, and I have a question for you. Are you planning on taking any long road trips? Well, I have the perfect tool for you to make that trip go by a little bit faster. What you want to do is download the iHeartRadio app. With the iHeartRadio app, you can find your favorite music stations or create your own custom station. Don't forget to look up your favorite talk show hosts. You can find that on there as well. Make sure to download the app today at iHeartRadio.com.
You can catch the latest Beyond Reason podcast on SoundCloud today. Download the app today and search Beyond Reason Radio.
For the people in our military, it's a time of sacrifice and duty. That's why all 4 military aid societies have joined together to form the Armed Forces Relief Trust to help military families cope with financial and medical emergencies at home. With so many serving overseas, the need is greater than ever. You can learn more and donate at www.afrtrust.org. A message from the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
If you like Beyond Reason Radio, well, make sure to show it by liking the Facebook page at facebook.com/Beyond Reason Radio.
And why should you not like Beyond Reason Radio? Where can you get a great education like this at the Beyond Reason School with Professor Yaffee teaching you. By the way, yes, class is in session, everybody. By the way, if you want to catch a good education on how an economy works, why free tuition is silly, check out the last show that I did on Friday. It's entitled Beyond Reason Education. You can check that out at the website or just download the Beyond Reason radio app. It's on the App Store. Just go get it. You can listen to the show live or listen to the podcast.
It doesn't get much easier than that.
Way to sound as cliche commercial as you possibly can, Mike. I appreciate that.
And it can be yours for free $99.
Free $99.
$95.
Get it now. What are you waiting for? Okay. We have way too much fun doing this show, by the way. Everybody,
I mean,
just
if
so
you don't
know,
have fun, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. We try to be positive and fun here. We're regular people, really. I mean, we.
It's true. I just ate Burger King.
Yeah. What did you get at Burger King?
I got a double cheeseburger and a Dr. Pepper. It
Yeah,
was
you told me
not
to try
as good as that brisket at Doc Street Side Grill, though.
Yeah. By the way, I went to
not to drop a line or anything.
Speaking of food, I went to a Subway today. I go to Subway every now and then when I can't get out to Doc's.
Oh, and you feel like eating fresh.
Yeah, I mean Doc's is even fresher than Subway.
Of course.
But when I can't get out there, if I need something fast, I'll go to Subway. And right next door is a burger place, Five Guys.
Oh yeah, Five Guys. I'm very familiar.
And you know how hard it is to go and to still eat Subway when there's a good burger and fries place next door? And as fat as I am,
veggies
and unhealthy.
Are grease. Veggies are grease.
But I still got the fresh. I still ate healthier. I deserve a medal today for being able to do that, by the way. Anyways, the Beyond Reason medal of the day is me not eating greasy burgers. I'll probably eat that later in the week, though. I'm not going to lie.
I'm going to eat it after we leave.
By the way, Doc Street Side Grill has great burgers, too. I'm just telling everybody. Anyways, we were listening to audio because I've talked about the root of Islamic terrorism. Goes way back. It really even goes back. I talked about Wahid Khattab, who was the roots of a lot of this in these movements with the Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Qaeda, whatever. Very major influence in that part of the region. But it really goes back farther than that. It goes back to the idea. It's a clash between Western civilization, modernity, and those who want to think that is a threat to their religion. And they won't stop until that threat is eradicated. Simple as that. And we were listening to a soundbite from a former Islamic radical who changed his mind. And he talked about what I said, the roots. But now he's going to get into how we fight it. How do we fight this? And it's not an easy question to answer. I don't necessarily have all the answers to this. But I know what we're doing right now is not working, obviously. But this is what he had to say.
Very easy, the lure to be able to get people that have had all the benefits of society and a great education and upbringing. Nevertheless, they gravitate towards it.
Well, let's begin by not artificially declaring mission accomplished moments. At the end of the day, we heard just yesterday from the president that ISIS has been contained.
Shrinking, yeah.
Before that, when bin Laden was killed, people were assuming that's the end of jihadism and the end of Al-Qaeda. This problem is metastasizing. We have to understand the problem for what it is, get to grips with it, and recognize this isn't going to go away until, in the long term, we put down a communities-based strategy whereby people who are bravely challenging this extremist ideology are not called Islamophobes, they're not called racists, but they're recognized for what they are, and that is real heroic voices within.
So I can't
Okay,
what
stop right there.
turned you described.
Stop right there. And this is a problem. Like I said, I interviewed someone. You can check it on the website tomorrow, who basically said that she was upset because of Muslim hatred against Muslims after this attack. Because we're merely candidates are pointing out a radical Islamic ideology, like he said. And we can't, and I agree with him, we can't have these mission accomplished moments because what we're fighting is not we're not fighting a specific group. It's so much deeper than that. We're not just fighting ISIS. We're not just fighting Al-Qaeda. We can't just say we have to defeat that. We're fighting an ideology that is spreading. So when we have these mission accomplished moments and we just, okay, we're done. Wipe our hands clean and we're just out of here. We're done. No, we can't. It's so much deeper than that. So what he said is right. But he also also talks about how we can defeat it. And we have to get rid of this political correctness nonsense that you can't say the word. This has to be deeper, community involvement, sharing our values. And there's a cut I'm going to play with somebody later where he talks about we need to at least share our values with the world. If we're going to believe in American values, we need to stand up for American values. But this is very interesting, too, because he goes on to talk about here why he decided to go away from radical Islam. And this is very, very telling of the enemy, of the evil we are truly dealing with. This is what he had to say.
I can't resist. What turned you? You describe yourself as a former Islamic extremist. You're not now. Why? What was the moment that switched your mind?
There wasn't a moment, but I spent 5 years as a political prisoner in Egypt, and during that time I was living with some of the leading voices of the jihadist movements. This is before ISIS, this is before, many years. This is up until from 2002 to 6. Living up close with these people, a thought dawned upon me in 2007, and that was, my God, if these guys ever come to power and declare the caliphate, this is going to be hell on earth, and I don't want to live under that type of society, because I saw them up close, a bit like the jihadist version of Animal Farm, George Orwell's Animal Farm. Sure. And so I called it back in 2006. I said, that caliphate's going to be a nightmare, and of course, now we see it for what it is.
And that was before ISIS. He's talking about another group. He was in Egypt, remember? But he was like, look, it dawned on me that if these people ever get in power, it'll be hell on earth. We don't need to just understand them, work with them. We need to defeat them because of what they are. If this former radical can be changed because he saw the true evil of the leadership in these groups, we need to understand how evil it is as well. We need to be scared a little bit of the threat, because it can very well happen here. It has happened here on 9/11, but terrorist type attacks can happen here. Now, hopefully, people have their gun rights so they can be able to defend themselves, and I've talked about that before. And I'm actually going to get to that here with the next person I'm going to talk to. This is a national security expert, very experienced. His name is Sebastian. What's his last name, Mike? It's up there on the screen.
His name is Gorka, Dr. Gorka.
Gorka, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, national security expert who was also on Fox. I found some great stuff on Fox News. It's not that I just love Fox News more than everyone else. I mean, I probably like it better. I usually don't watch a lot of cable news to begin with, but I just happen to find some good stuff because they're talking to people that are really experts and making a lot of sense here. I go to CNN.com, for instance, and I look at their videos on their website, and it's all like entertainment stuff and all stuff that's not important. I don't care about. But I go Fox News website and they have some stuff. So a little bit of kudos for this weekend for Fox News. But I found this couple of cuts here, and he goes after the same thing. I want you to play the first cut here, Mike, from Dr. Gorka.
Well, number one, Judge, is we start to speak honestly about who they are and why they're fighting. We have to jettison this 7-year-old myth, this Alice in Wonderland narrative that it's about unemployment and lack of education. Just look at who these people are. Look at who Jihadi John was. Look at the 19 hijackers. Look at Major Nidal Hassan. None of these people were born in Palestinian refugee camps. None of these people were disenfranchised minorities. The fact is, this is about jihad. This is about an ideology that wishes to destroy Western civilization, starting with us, America, the pinnacle. We have censored our federal agencies. You can't even talk about jihad if you're doing training for federal law enforcement or the military. That's just insane. We will never win this war until we get politics out of the intelligence cycle and out of the national security function.
Well, couldn't have said it better myself. And I liked how he said it, too, that it's a fight against our civilization, and America is the pinnacle. So that is why, that's why they call us the Great Satan in some places. That's why they attack us specifically, because we are the pinnacle of that civilization. And then he gets here to what is the steps? I mean, he talks about what I've been talking about, what the former radical Nawaz talked about, that we have to be honest about the enemy first. But how do we fight it? And this is a point that I actually made on Friday's show. I made it in the past. There is basically only one way that we really can fight it here. And this is what he said.
Look, I grew up in the UK during the time of the IRA. There it was essential. Everybody was on a heightened sense of alert, what we call code yellow. If somebody put a bag down on a bus, on a tube train, on the subway, within 60 seconds, somebody, a granny, a school kid would say, hey, who owns that? And when there was no response, the train, the bus would be stopped and evacuated. We have to be at that heightened level of alert. Judge, let me share one statistic with you. My wife and I, in our work for the USG, for the intelligence community, we've analyzed all the data of ISIS arrests in America since the caliphate was declared. There have been 80 arrests. 30% of those people arrested in America over a 12-month period had no intention of going to Syria or Iraq to fight. They had decided the best way to serve the jihad was to kill Americans on U.S. soil. 30%. This isn't about something happening 8,000 miles away in Iraq. It's not just about something happening 5,000 miles away in Paris. It's about America. You must bear a responsibility for yourself until we have a new commander-in-chief.
This is exactly what I said on Friday's show. It is what I've said on the past. The main way we have to fight them is we have to be vigilant ourselves as individuals. We have to pay attention to what's going on in the world, but what's going on around us, and we have to be able to defend ourselves. This is why I get behind this microphone and talk about gun rights and talk about the Second Amendment and talk about our ability to defend ourselves, because that's what we have to do here. Because until we get a commander-in-chief, like you said, who gets it, all we can do is bear the responsibility for ourselves as individuals. And then we have to be vigilant as individuals, and we have to be able to defend ourselves on the front lines. And like he said, they are here. Some of them were even born here. Once again, my point that this is about a radical ideology more than, oh, they kill us because we bombed them. Because we didn't bomb ourselves. The radicals are being radicalized here. We didn't bomb ourselves, so obviously they hate us for a different reason. I guess we have to go to a break here. The class will come back and wrap up the rest of the class. But I just think it's funny. This is a national security expert here. Very smart guy. By the way, it's not my intention that all these guys have like British accents or whatever. Even the next guy I'm going to play does. It's just kind of happened is maybe they just get it more than we do.
It classes up the place.
It's not that I'm just looking for people with British accent. I'm just looking for these experts who get it. And they get it. And we'll get to that. I have another soundbite about why Europe is falling, why Europe is such a problem, why Europe is in worse shape than we are, really, and how we cannot follow their example. You are listening to Beyond Reason Radio, Orlando's smart talk radio, here at BeyondReasonRadio.com and live on the Beyond Reason Radio app.
You can catch the latest Beyond Reason podcast on SoundCloud today.
Orlando's newest dining sensation, Doc's Streetside Grill, specializes in amazing flavors at prices you'll love. With special events and entertainment ranging from trivia to live bands to poker every evening, there's something for everyone. Doc's has amazing flavors that are always fresh. You know the motto, made today, bought yesterday. Doc's is located across from Orlando Regional Medical Center on South Orange Avenue. Check out DocStreetSideGrill.com for more info. Doc's is your prescription for good times. See you there.
Subscribe to the Beyond Reason podcast today on your Stitcher app and hear the voice of reason anytime.
Hey, this is Mike Yaffee from Bud Hedinger Live and Beyond Reason Radio, and I have a question for you. Are you planning on taking any long road trips? Well, I have the perfect tool for you to make that trip go by a little bit faster. What you want to do is download the iHeartRadio app. With the iHeartRadio app, you can find your favorite music stations or create your own custom station. Don't forget to look up your favorite talk show hosts. You can find that on there as well. Make sure to download the app today at iHeartRadio.com.
You can catch the latest Beyond Reason podcast on SoundCloud today. Download the app today and search Beyond Reason Radio.
For the people in our military, it's a time of sacrifice and duty. That's why all 4 military aid societies have joined together to form the Armed Forces Relief Trust. to help military families cope with financial and medical emergencies at home. With so many serving overseas, the need is greater than ever. You can learn more and donate at www.afrtrust.org. A message from the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Subscribe to the Beyond Reason podcast today on your Stitcher app and hear the voice of reason anytime.
So many different ways to listen to the podcast or you can just go to the website beyondreasonradio.com and do that as well. There's no excuse not to listen, as I like to say. We do the show live, though, every Monday and Friday at 8 p.m. So if you are listening to the podcast right now, but you want to listen live, you can by downloading the Beyond Reason Radio app. Listen, once you download it at your Apple App Store or Google Play Store, you can listen live on Mondays and Fridays at 8 p.m. Every Monday and Friday at 8 p.m. And a bunch of other good stuff on the website as well. Now, Mike, we were talking a little bit in the break about the last audio cuts we were playing from a national security expert, Dr. Sebastian, I always forget his last name.
Dr. Gorka.
Gorka. Yeah, ooh, I like that. British accent. Maybe you should just always have a British accent to sound smarter.
It's not a bad idea.
I still think he still sounds smarter than you.
I have no problem stepping behind this mic and getting a little culture.
He had the deeper voice, though. That's what made him sound smart.
Getting a little culture.
That's better. A little bit better.
Dr. Gorka.
But you had told me that you really liked what he had to say, or at least it made a lot of sense to you.
Yeah, it's nice hearing. I don't know. It felt like I could trust what he was saying, kind of, and that he had the knowledge behind it to push that forward.
And I wanted to bring you in for that because I wanted to tell people why I'm playing these guys. I could be like every other host and play what Ted Cruz says and all the candidates say, and I played a little bit of Obama and Rubio, but to make different points, but. I could do this whole thing about which candidate is stronger on ISIS and what does Trump think and all
the
this
same stuff.
And that's fine. You can hear that anywhere. But I wanted to get today's show, because this show is a little bit... I try to get a little bit deeper, because we're supposed to be the voice of reason. There's so much noise out there, and I try to be a voice of reason through it all. And I wanted to get deeper into the roots of all this, so we can...
Especially like that Majid cut.
Yeah.
Hearing from somebody who has the actual experience on the other side.
Exactly. So I wanted to get those, because you're not hearing that everywhere. You're not getting that everywhere. And I wanted to get those guys in to give you some perspective. So we can understand the enemy, so we can eventually defeat the enemy. So it's not about politics with this. It is so much deeper than that. I mean, both sides are not really facing the enemy. Although, I wish I had the cut. Shortly after 9/11, George Bush made a speech about the war. And he warned us, as a country, this is going to be a long war. It's going to be a hard war. It's going to be a different kind of war, and we're going to have to be patient. We're going to have to get through a lot of stuff to be able to win this war, and it's like we ignored him. We thought it would be over in a couple of years, and then we blame him for spending on war and all this stuff, and he warned us. But I wanted to play one more cut here, and this is from Mark Steyn. Now, this guy is a noted conservative talker. He has a couple books that I really like. He fills in for Rush all the time. But he wrote a book a few years ago called America Alone, and he predicted all this stuff that's happening. And so I thought he would be a good person to see, why is Europe having such a problem with this? Europe is in a lot worse shape than we are, partly because they're right next to the Middle East, because they're going to have to deal with this head on. They're closer. But there's other reasons as well. And we're, as a country, we're in the direction of Europe. We're trying to be like Europe, more socialist, more politically correct, more, quote-unquote tolerant, even though we don't understand what tolerance means anymore. But this is what Mark Steyn had to say. It was really poignant. We need to learn from him.
So you cannot solve it by intelligence. You have to actually talk about things like a moratorium on Muslim immigration and waging the battle ideologically. You have to be prepared. You have to not just talk about our values, as Cameron did. You have to identify what those values are and be prepared to defend and advance them in the world. Don't just say they're universal, because the guy in Yemen and the goat herd, the Pushtun goat herd, and the fellow who thinks his daughter got raped so she deserves to die, these people don't think they're universal values.
Honor killings.
And Obama is useless if that's all he's got to say about it.
It really is a British day, isn't it?
I know I didn't. It was not my intention to be that. But listen to what he said. Think about this. This is why Europe has a problem, because they don't do this. And we aren't doing this anymore. It has to be about more than saying, well, values are universal. No, they're not. Not to our enemy. They have totally different values than we do. And it has to be more than that. We have to be a moral authority. And we hate to do that now because of political correctness. And Obama definitely hates to do this. He believes we're the problem in the world. But what he's saying might be the most profound thing in terms of fighting the enemy I've heard. That the best way we can defeat the enemy... Actually, go ahead and start that cut from the beginning, Mike. And I'm going to have you pause right when he says it. Because this is what we need to do. We need this leadership. Go ahead, Mike.
So you cannot solve it by intelligence. You have to actually talk about things like a moratorium on Muslim immigration and waging the battle ideologically. You have to be prepared. You have to not just talk about our values, as Cameron did. You have to identify what those values are and be prepared to defend and advance them in the world.
Okay, stop right there. You can't just talk about our values. You have to define them and be prepared to defend and advance them in the world. This is why Obama's not going to do this. Because Obama doesn't believe that our values are superior. He doesn't believe that our values are always right. He believes, in a lot of ways, we are the problem in the world. And we can't defeat an enemy with totally different values if we're not going to defend and advance our values. The best way to defeat an ideological enemy is to advance a better way. You know, in a lot of ways, that's how we beat the Soviet Union without firing a shot. Now, we beat them economically because our economic system doesn't work. But when the Berlin Wall came down, that was done by people, ordinary people, because they were wanting freedom, and they couldn't wait to tear that down when the first opportunity came, because you had leaders here and leaders in the world and leaders in the Catholic Church like John Paul who were willing to stand up and fight for the values of Western civilization, for the values of freedoms and free markets and Christianity and religion. That is what was instrumental in defeating communism and made them the ash heap of history, which a lot of people said at the time couldn't be done. We could never defeat the Soviet Union, they said. And we did. So we have to fight terrorism in much the same way. First, we have to understand it's a different ideology, a radical Islamic ideology. So we can't just fight it based on religion, that they need religion. They have a religion. But it has to be defining our values of individual liberty, of the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, of due process, of innocent until proven guilty, of individual rights, the rights to vote, the right of women in a society, the rights of free markets, the rights of religious freedom and being able to choose your religion. These are Western values. And we're not even advancing them in our own country, to our own children, to our own people. How are we supposed to defeat an enemy if we're not even advancing them to our own people? We have to do that to the enemy, and we have to do it here. And we need leadership that's willing to do that, to say, we believe in the Constitution. We believe in the rule of law. We believe in limited government. We believe in individual freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom to make a business, to prosper, freedom of women to vote, freedom to be a part in society without tyrannical laws, freedom to choose how you worship. And we have to be willing to fight for it. So what Mark said is very profound. And, well, that was Beyond Reason Radio School. I wanted to get into the roots of radical Islam and how we fight it. And, I'm just one guy here. But I thank you all for listening today. Make sure to stand up for values. And, of course, I always end with values from my own, which is from the true voice of reason, which is the Bible, which is the Word of God. So I'm not going to be afraid to stand up for my values. And from Philippians chapter 4, like I always read, finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And the God of peace will be with you. Beyond Reason Radio. Hope you all enjoyed the show. I will catch you guys on Friday.